Welcome to Module 1 of our reproduction of chickens takes place much in the same way as every other animal on Earth, but there are a few differences that we should note and some things that you can talk about with the kids about the process. That's probably the biggest question that I get is how does the baby chick get inside the egg? And it's difficult with the older kids. It's easier to explain, especially if you're doing it as a high school class or even a junior high class. But when you're dealing with pre-K, kindergarten through third graders, it can be a very difficult subject to explain how fertilization occurs. So just keep that in mind, and just let them know that a rooster and a hen are both required, and that without the rooster, the hen will still lay eggs, but a rooster has to be present in order for fertilization, that is, to make sure that there's a chick inside of the egg to occur. One of the factors that occurs, or that we take into account when eggs are fertilized and when they're not, is sunlight. Both the males and the females have a little bit of a sunlight, for lack of a better term, sensor in their eye, in the back of their eye. And this tells them at the different times of day, depending on the sunlight, when the hen is most fertile and when the rooster can deposit its sperm for the best results. Again, roosters are not needed for egg production. They are needed for the fertilization process to occur, but a chicken will lay upwards of 250 eggs, depending on the variety of chicken, within a year. That's almost an egg every day, considering it takes almost 24 or just over 24 hours for an egg to develop. That's not a lot of time, but we'll talk more about that here in just a second. Another interesting thing to note is that whereas most animals have 2 ovaries, hens only have or only use 1. They're born with 2, but upon hatching, in the hens, one of the ovaries will dry up and will remain in the body, but is not usable due to the effect that growing 2 eggs at a time would have on the chicken and its health. And most people are familiar with the parts of a chicken egg because they're the 3 most visible parts. We all see the shell, we all see the egg yolk, and we all see the egg white, or the albumin. But just seeing what we normally see when we crack an egg into a pan, we're not able to take full account of what all is inside of the egg, what all makes up the shell. There's a lot more parts to the egg which all have a place in chick development, and we'll see on the next slide we have a little bit of a chart, animated chart that shows how the egg shell is put together and what the different parts of it are. As you can see here, we have the anatomy of a chicken egg, and we're going to talk about the 8 main parts of the chicken egg and how they connect to each other and what purpose they have in hatching a baby chick. And of course, the first part that we're going to talk about is the eggshell. Now, of course, this is the most visible part of the egg. As soon as it is laid, it is made entirely of calcium and is covered in many thousands of little pores that can allow moisture and air in and out of the egg. And this is essential in the proper development of a baby chick. The outside of the egg, the outermost part of the egg is called, or the shell is called the cuticle, and this helps keep out some bacteria and other things as well. The next 2 parts of the egg that we'll talk about are the outer membrane and the inner membrane. And these are just inside the eggshell, and they protect the albumen, which is the clear part of the egg, and we'll talk more about that in a second. These membranes provide a pretty good defense against bacteria from getting in the egg. The outer membrane sticks to the inside of the shell itself, while the inner membrane sticks to the outside of the albumen. The next part of the egg that we'll talk about is the air space, which is actually formed from the inner and outer membrane. When the egg is laid, it's warm, and from the body heat of the hen. And as the egg starts to cool, the inner membrane pulls away from the outer membrane, and that creates an air space, usually on the larger side of the egg. Now, the air space is used for the baby chick when it's needing air as it's preparing to hatch from its egg. The air trapped in that area will be used for the chick to breathe its first few breaths of air as it prepares to hatch from the egg. The next part of the egg that we'll talk about is the albumen. The albumen, or what we might call in the culinary world as the egg white, is mostly made up of water, and its primary purpose is to both protect the yolk, which would become the baby chick, and to provide nutrition for the embryo as it develops within the egg. It also serves to hold the next part of the egg that we'll talk about, which is the chalaza. The chalaza are twisted bands of fibers within the albumen, which really help to maintain the stability of the egg, or the yolk, within the middle of the egg. That way the yolk is not damaged in movement, either by the chicken or in one of our incubators. The final structures that we'll talk about within the egg are the vitelline membrane and, of course, the yolk. The vitelline membrane is connected to the rest of the yolk and actually protects the yolk from moving around and doesn't do much else. It's usually clear. You won't be able to see it, but what you will be able to see, of course, is the yolk of the egg. When fertilized, the yolk, or the yellow inner part of the egg, is where the embryo will form and become the baby chick. The yolk also contains the food, most of the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, and as well as the lipids that are needed to nourish the embryo as it grows and prepares to become a baby chick. Aside from these points, there are also some breakdowns of the albumen and some other areas within the yolk that may need to be explained if you'd like to further your own education on the matter. But for the purpose of educating kindergarten through second graders, these should be enough terms for the kids to know, to get a good idea of how the chicken is growing within its egg and what needs to take place in order for that to happen. Here you can see, as I just said, there are some to the chicks hatching, like I talked about. If that is the case and you don't feel comfortable as a teacher with dealing with them yourself, please contact myself or your county agent for help. We'll be more than willing to come out and check your eggs, to candle your eggs, and to deal with any issues with the chicks that may arise. That's what we've been trained to do. That's what we do on a regular basis. And don't feel like you have to be doing this program all by yourself. This is a curriculum enrichment program, which means that it's something extra that that you can do with your kids. but we want to be there as much as possible to help you out with it. That way you don't feel like you're alone in this process. It can be disheartening when your eggs don't hatch, or when you have a chick that hatches that has very serious health issues. It's also difficult to dispatch those chickens that do have those issues, which will not survive, and to prevent suffering, you have to take matters into your own hands sometimes. But that's what we can be there for. So just let us know if there's any issues that may arise. More on the actual class itself. You can use the discussion tab on Google as laid out in the syllabus to ask any questions you might have. I'll respond to those as soon as possible. And you can also talk with your classmates about possible different experiences that they've had with the Hatching in the Classroom project in the past as well. I'm also going to make available a self-assessment, which is available on Google Forms. The links for all of these will be laid out in the syllabus, and this will be for you to just take to view how much you've learned. You're not going to get a grade or anything like that on it, but it is something available for you to take just to gauge where you're at on understanding the subject material, to then give back to the kids. There's lots of different curriculums and resources out there, so if you'd like to add more to your knowledge base, you're more than welcome to look at one of those as well. But this is just a very basic starting place for you for the Hatching in the Classroom project. Module 2 will soon be available on YouTube. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Send me an email, send me a message on our County 4-H Facebook page, or contact or post a question on the discussion tab. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in Module 2.